Hello everyone, my name is Dalton and welcome to my channel. This is going to be a very long video. It's been such a long time since I've made or done anything with this YouTube channel. I moved a long time ago, I started a new job, I just worked a lot of hours at that job. I just did not have time to exist outside of work, let alone read, edit YouTube videos, do anything like that. But I recently changed jobs again. I have a lot more time on my hands. I've been reading more. So recently, like over the last couple of months specifically, I've just been buying a lot more books, as one does when they read often. And I would not say that my reading, like the amount that I read, is up there with how many books I buy, but who cares? I spend money needlessly all the time. And if I want to buy a book, I'm going to. But with that being said, I do have so many books that I've accumulated from Chicago, from random trips that I've taken recently to go to concerts, just that I've bought at local bookstores around where I live, stuff like that. So I'm just gonna show you guys all the books that I've recently bought, let you know what they're about if I've read them, how I've liked some of them, because some of them I've actually really enjoyed. But without further ado, let's get into my book haul. So the first book that I'm gonna start with is A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Faz Meadows. I have read this. This is like a fantasy queer romance. Essentially, there is an arranged marriage between this one kind of sort of lord in another kingdom to try to, just have better political relations with these two kingdoms, but things do not go as planned. It is quite abrupt at the beginning. There is a rape scene, which this other group of like basically political, I don't know what exactly you'd call them. Basically, the people that the other kingdom sent to pick up the other lord saw him being raped and are immediately like, well, you were to be married off to the daughter, but do you prefer men? There is a son that you can marry. So essentially, we just kind of go through him being new to this kingdom. I loved the beginning of this. I feel like it dragged on a lot. I cannot lie. It's almost 500 something plus pages. It's like 550 pages. And the plot just was not good after a certain point. There were things that I liked. There is a second book to this. I actually just got it from the library. I don't plan on buying it until it's in a paperback copy, just because I do prefer them to match. But I did read this. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, maybe 4 stars, I don't remember, but it was good. I thought the writing in this was actually quite great. So that is one thing that I really enjoyed. The next book that I picked up, this was kind of a random purchase, Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I read half of this when I was in college for a class, and I just didn't have time to finish it. But I always have wanted to, because I do quite like her writing. She is kind of a mess politically. She said some things about trans people that I don't necessarily agree with, but I do still want to give this novel a try. Essentially, it follows characters who are going and living through the Biafran Nigerian civil war, and it's just tragic, it's heartbreaking, it's beautiful. One thing you can't say is that she's a bad writer, because it's just not true. It's wonderful. I don't know when I'll read this, but hopefully soon. I really want to read this and finish it. So I bought this book randomly, and that's Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I also read this when I was in college. I actually finished it. I was at like a half price books, I think, and it was on sale for like $6. So I just was like, oh wow, that's such a pretty cover. I didn't realize at the time that I already had a copy of this. And I had lent it out to somebody. I just completely forgot that I even owned it, so that's why I bought it. But now I have 2 copies of this. And the other one is the ugly cover, so I will be getting rid of that one and keeping this. I love this book. Essentially, it's like sci-fi. This woman I believe in the 1990s, gets teleported back to the 1800s during slavery. She's a black woman, of course, and it's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's fun at times, which is crazy to say, but this is such a good book. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. It was excellent. I want to read this again soon as well. So this book I bought in Chicago, and the only reason I bought it is because of this cover. Look at it. I have no clue what it's about. I don't care. I don't know if I'll ever even read it. The pink, the dog, smoking a cigarette, the white, everything about it works for me, and I just love it. I don't know how much I spent on it either. I couldn't tell you. I don't care. It's just pretty. I also bought this when I was in Chicago for Pride, and that is Iced Out by C. Ritchie. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. This is literally a smut book about college athletes. I believe they're hockey players, if I remember correctly. And I had just not read anything in so long. I think the last book that I had finished before this was probably in like March or February. And this was just like, I just needed something fun, something stupid that I didn't really have to pay attention to. And this worked for me. I mean, it's a horrible book, super tropey, very strange. None of this would actually happen in real life, but I did really enjoy it. So I think I gave it 2.5, 3 stars, something like that. It was just a fun book. Writing's bad, but who cares? This is another book that I bought in Chicago, and that is The New Life by Tom Crew. This is set, I believe, in like the 1800s, late 1800s, following two men who are writing stories or newspaper articles, I think, about being queer, being gay in a time when it's not acceptable. I have no clue. The bookstore that I went to, I don't remember. I don't think I have the bookmark anywhere near me either. Unabridged Books, maybe? It was one of the best bookstores I've ever been to. It just had so many queer books because it's right outside of like Boys Town. So like the LGBT section is so huge and massive. I think I bought like 4 or 5 books when I was there. Spent way too much money. I don't know when I'll read this. I really want to. I just like have not been in the mood for like literary fiction, and I feel like that's what this is gonna be. I just don't really want anything super sad right now because I'm just going through a lot in life. I haven't been feeling the best mentally. So don't know when I'll pick this up, but I hope it's good with a cover like this. How can it not be? Everything about it is stunning. And that's kind of all I have to say. This is another book that I got in Chicago, and I have also read this. I bought it at the same bookstore as the last couple. The Sluts. When I tell you, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Essentially, what this book is just like online reviews of an escort / sex worker. It's this one sex worker in specific. His name is Brad, and we basically just read the entire story is told through reviews, text messages of this escort and of what the customers are doing, how the customers feel about the interactions, about Brad's mental health, and it is so crazy. It's insane. I loved this book so much. I think I gave it 4 stars, but like, this is one of the best books that I've ever read. It makes you think, it makes you wonder, it makes you cringe, it makes you disgusted. Every emotion you will have. Also, the way it's written is so fun. I think I finished it in like a day and a half, and even then I was reading it pretty slowly because I didn't want it to end. The next book, I think I just got it like a random Barnes & Noble when I was going to like Trader Joe's because there's one right down the road. And that is 5 Broken Blades by Mai Cortland. I have had this in like my Amazon like wish list for a while because I read like the synopsis. I couldn't tell you what it's about now. It was months ago. And it sounded good. I recently found out that this is a fantasy romance novel, which I don't really love. I feel like it's not been marketed that way at all, and it's just not my type of, it's not my cup of tea. It's not what I want to read personally. If there is a romance subplot, normally I don't care, but unless it's queer, I typically just don't care about romances and fantasy. But this novel is stunning. These edges are amazing. Everything about it was beautiful. It was 50% off, so it ended up being like $15 or something crazy like that. So I just had to buy it. I don't know when I'll read this now that I know that there is a romance in it, and that's like a major point of the novel, but it's super short, so maybe it'll be soon. Who knows? I'm kind of in a reading slump right now, which is why I'm doing this video, to try to make me like start reading again, but we'll get to that later. And then I picked up a copy of The Color Purple, which I didn't own before this. I read it in high school, I want to say, and I absolutely loved it. This should be required reading. One of my friends texted me and was like, hey, do you want to go to this bookstore so I could sell back a whole bunch of books, get some cash? And then I walked around and bought this. I think she bought a couple things too. But I just wanted a copy, and this is one of the nicer copies that I've seen. It was like $8 or $9, so I just bought it. Glad to have it. I don't know if I'll ever reread this, hopefully one day, but I don't have any plans to reread this anytime soon, but glad that I own a copy of this. That same friend actually, we went to Detroit not too long ago to go see Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan in concert. Excellent concert, but we kind of want to start our own like book club, and we did it during COVID. She's just really bad at reading, I can't lie. Like worse than me. Like she made me read Dune, which is one of my least favorite books of all time. Maybe my least favorite, actually Gone Girl. Regardless, but she decided to do this because she picked up a copy and it sounds good. She typically likes more horror, thriller, gory type books. So You Look Better as a Ghost. I believe this follows a serial killer as she's like stalking her next victim, the next person that she wants to try to get away with murder. But what she doesn't know is that somebody's onto her, and I believe is going to try to trap her and catch her in the act of murdering this person. I read the synopsis, that's all I really know. I thought it sounded good. It's not super long. The cover is beautiful. So when we were in Detroit, we went to Ann Arbor, not Detroit, but Michigan. We went to Ann Arbor, and I picked up a copy of this at one of my favorite bookstores in Ann Arbor. So don't know when I'll read this because it's gonna kind of depend on her, but I am super excited to actually get to this. It sounds crazy, and I'm excited for that. It sounds very out of my element, which I think is good, refreshing. So hopefully I enjoy this. The next book, I believe I just got this at one of my local bookstores. That is Quarantine by Haulllll. I just read the back of this, I believe. And essentially it just kind of sounded like a story about a queer Indian man living in America, and just kind of like the trauma and the issues that goes along with living your life as a queer Indian man. What I did not know, what I should have known, is that there's a big word right there that says stories. I'm not a huge fan of short stories, typically, until I read this. I think the longest story in here is like 40, maybe 50 pages. Everything else is between like 8, maybe might be the shortest, and 20 typically. I think it was 9 or 10 stories in here. And besides the last one, which I didn't really love, this was like a 5-star novel, 5-star book for me. I loved every single short story in here, and I have read a lot of reviews criticizing the author because most of the stories are very similar, and I do agree with that. They are, but when they're written as well as these ones are, who cares? I just loved it. I loved every single story in here. I don't know if he's written anything else, but I definitely will be checking it out, and he might honestly become one of my favorite authors just because of this book. It was that good. I loved this. I really need to check out more from him. And then these ones I'm not going to mention too much just because, especially the first one. I was just in Books A Million the other day, and the one Books A Million that I go to, they have like such a big bargain section for some reason. I don't know why. It's inside of a mall. It's a tiny little Books A Million, but like half of it is just bargain books. Anyways, first book I picked up was Blade Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. I believe I have the first one. It's at my mom's house. I don't actually have it with me. I bought it when it came out, and I never actually read it, but I did kind of like her other series, Glass Throne or something like that, Glass Crown. I don't know. I have no clue what these are about. It was $7, like I said at the beginning of this. I like spending money on stuff I don't need. So that's kind of why I have this. Also, it's a fun little hardback for $6 or $7. How can you say no? It'll look good on a shelf even if I don't read it. The next book I picked up was He Who Drowned the World. This was also a Books A Million pickup. I read the first book in this novel, She Who Became the Sun, I believe is what it's called. Yeah. And I did not love it. I think I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5 at the time. It's historical fiction, low-key. The writing was very dry, and that was kind of like my main gripe with it. I felt like stuff just didn't really happen. The plot was kind of there, but not really. But I did enjoy the ending of it, and I didn't realize this had come out. I was looking to buy a new copy, and then I found it for $8. So I just bought it. I do need to reread the first one because I don't remember a whole lot that happened, because I mean, it had to have been 3 or 4 years ago when I read it, I believe. Maybe 2. I might be being a little crazy. It might have been 2. But now that I have a copy of this, I might just try to find like a really detailed synopsis of the first book and then pick this up sometime soon just to see what happens in this. I think this book is a little bit shorter than the first one too. Could be wrong about that as well. I could just be a liar. I don't know. So I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of in a reading slump, and the next books technically are gonna be, I don't want to blame them because I don't think it's their fault. It's partially my fault, but they're not helping. I went to Half Price Books not too long ago when I shouldn't have been spending money, and was walking around, you know, as one does, looking at everything, trying to find an excuse to buy something, even though I didn't need anything. And right as I was about to leave, I did one more glance down the fantasy aisle, and I found these 3 books. And it's the first 3, the first book's in my backpack for work. It's already packed up. I'm not touching it. But I bought all 3 of them. The Lies of Locke Lamora, Red Seas Under Red Skies, and The Republic of Thieves. I don't know the order of them. I know Lies of Locke Lamora are the first. In like the beautiful limited edition, like hardcover copies. And I've always wanted to read this series. I've always wanted to try to read The Lies of Locke Lamora. And it's fantastic. I love the way that it's written and broken up, and like the timeline is so all over the place. I really do find that fascinating. And I don't even think the writing itself is that bad, but there is something about the way in which it's written that I don't mesh with super well. I feel like there's just certain things that are brought up world building wise that are just done poorly. I don't know how else to describe it, and it just kind of takes me out of the story, and I just don't want to pick it up. I don't want to continue. And like I said, I do actually like what's happening. I love the flashbacks. I think when Locke is a child in the story, that's the best part. And I've read that if you just keep going and get past like halfway, it gets so much better towards the end, and I'm sure that is the case. But I've been on like 180 for like a month now, and I just like cannot force myself to continue. I want to so bad, it just has not happened. I have these beautiful copies too. Didn't spend a whole lot of money on them, probably like 35, 40 bucks total for all 3 of them. And they're so pretty, I don't really care. But it is a little disappointing. I really hope that I like it. I need to just force myself to finish it. I just can't. I don't know where I got this book. but that's Empire of the Damned. I read Empire of the Vampire kind of sort of when it came out, like the same year, I think towards the end of the year. It came out early. I read it at the end of the year. And it was like my first Jay Kristoff book I've ever read. And I loved it. I don't know what it was about the book. I don't even think it was necessarily a great book, but just everything worked for me. The way that it was written, the way that the story was told, everything about it really worked. And when I was reading it, I was kind of like, okay, how are we gonna make this into 2 novels or 3 novels? Because I didn't know at the time if it was gonna be a trilogy or anything. And I hadn't realized this came out, so I bought it and I read it because I reread Empire of the Damned just randomly because I bought a copy and I wanted to. And I didn't love this. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, but the first like 400 pages were pretty rough to get through. I did read it in like 4 or 5 days, don't get me wrong. It didn't take me a long time. I just didn't like what happened like plot wise. I didn't like how the story switched perspectives. Light spoiler. And overall I didn't like a lot of things, a lot of decisions that were really made in this novel. However, the end of it was great. I can't wait for the 3rd book, but like what's gonna happen, where's it gonna go, I have no idea. And I am a little frustrated by that. How is it at the end of the novel? Essentially, I had so many questions and everything at the end of book 1, and immediately in book 2, none of those are answered, and they're not answered throughout the entire novel. So my only concern with this is we now have 1 more book to go, and these are all, this one's 700 plus pages, the other one's over 700 pages as well. How, in another 700 page novel, how are we going to answer all the questions and all the stuff that I had from the first book, and now all the questions and stuff that I have from this book? It doesn't seem possible to me. And like I said, I've never read anything else by Jay Kristoff. I know he's not a great person either. But how's it gonna end? I don't get it. I did not love this book. Pretty cover, I guess. I think the other book's prettier, but if you like the first one, I'd say continue. You don't have to if you don't want to, I guess. This was another random pickup. I think I got this at Books A Million. Gallant by V.E. Schwab. No clue what this is about. It was just on clearance for like $5 or $6, so I bought it. I've read that one trilogy that's now longer, I believe, by V.E. Schwab. Conjuring of Light. Those ones, they were fine. Good, decent writing, decent plot, decent story. Nothing crazy about them. I kind of like how short everything is with her, like the chapters and everything. It just makes everything feel like it's moving super fast. I don't have any plans on reading this anytime soon. It's like a YA, maybe even middle grade novel. I don't care. I just like it. I bought it. I've also read the one about the girl. I've also read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I loved. I thought that was such a good book. It was written so well. But I just figured I'd pick it up just so I have it. If I'm ever bored and need something that I want to read in a day, I can go to this. This was a random pickup. I think I bought this at the same bookstore that I bought Quarantine, if I'm not mistaken. Essentially, if I walk into a local, like, independent bookstore, I can't leave without actually buying something, and I feel bad. So in this case, I bought 2. I was looking at this book at Target, and then I saw it here. It was on sale for like 20% off, new bestseller. So I bought it here instead of Target. The Pairing by Casey McQuiston, same author of Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is a gay male romance. I don't know anything about it. I think it's about a couple who broke up and now we're going on like the same vacation together and everything's gonna happen again or something like that. I just kind of liked this and these little bees or whatever this stuff is. I just like the edges. I don't know when books started doing this. It was kind of just like I woke up one day and everybody's starting to do this. And I don't know when I'll read this. I'm not really interested anytime soon, but hopefully I enjoy it. I really liked her first book, so couldn't have gotten much worse, hopefully. I have started this book, which is why the dust jacket is off, but that is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. I don't know how to describe this book, really. It's a high fantasy. I think it's been compared a little bit to Game of Thrones. The first couple chapters are crazy. I have no clue what's going on. I'm not far. I think I'm only like 30 pages in, maybe. Like I said, I'm kind of in a reading slump, so I just haven't really been able to sit down and do anything. I read that while I was doing laundry the other day. But the writing is beautiful. I really like the way it's being told. I don't really understand what's happening, but I hope that I find out. That's kind of all I have to say. The cover is beautiful. I think it's right here. The cover is stunning also. Like, that's stunning. The edges are stunning. I bought it at Barnes & Noble, I think, during the 50% off hardcover sale. And I just had to have it. It just sounded interesting. And so far I love it. So I bought this as well the other day when I was in Detroit. Well, Ann Arbor technically, but Michigan nonetheless. And that's Sluts, the anthology. I was a little disappointed. I started this the other day too, and I'm about 30 pages in. I thought that this was going to be fiction, and so far, at the very least, it's all nonfiction. It's a lot of memoir. The very first section in this is kind of just like the history of the word slut and how words evolve and change and that sort of stuff. It's just very linguistic heavy. What is it? The study of language and how things evolve and stuff, whatever that word is. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And I don't know if I'm gonna like this. There is the story that I'm on now. I say story, but I don't know what else to call it. The piece that I'm on now, the third chapter, is actually by the same author who wrote Gabar's Why We Went Out, I believe is what it's called. That's such a great memoir. The writing is fantastic in it. Super excited to read the short story about it. Or short story, it's not a story. So excited to read the piece that he wrote for this. And crazy, but literally the first two sentences, he mentions famous is what he calls his partner, his spouse. I'm not sure what their title is. And I was like, wait, there's no way that's the same person. And then I went and looked at the book and I was like, oh my God, it is. So his section, I'm not quite finished with it, is fantastic so far. He's such an excellent writer. But I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one. I hope there is some fiction in here, but I don't know. I just went through so many books, and the craziest thing is that's not even all of them. There's some over on this shelf that you can't really see. I just didn't feel like taking everything down and bringing them out. Most of them are queer anthologies, a lot about queer London and the just sex in times where it wasn't okay to be queer. So that's what a lot of those have to do with. I'm sure I'm forgetting some others as well. I know I had a library sale that I went to at the end of August. I bought a few books. I don't think I mentioned any of those. We're just gonna pretend that I didn't buy them recently. So thank you guys for putting up with me talking about all these books. Yes, I do have a problem. I need to start reading again, which I don't know when that's gonna happen. As soon as I finish The Lies of Locke Lamora, hopefully. But we shall see. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out. Bye.